My name is Ava, and this is my story. It all began 6 months ago, a few weeks after I moved into my new apartment. I first noticed him at the grocery store. At first, I didn't think much of it, just a guy shopping. But then I saw him again at the coffee shop the next day, and then at the park where I jogged. He had a way of blending in, always at a distance, never doing anything that screamed danger. But his presence became impossible to ignore. One evening, as I was heading home from work, I saw him standing across the street from my building. He was leaning against a lamppost, staring directly at me. I quickened my pace and rushed inside, my heart pounding. I didn't see him again that night, but the unease lingered. Days turned into weeks, and the sightings became more frequent. He never approached me, never spoke a word, but he was always there, watching. I told myself I was being paranoid, that it was just a coincidence, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. One night, I was woken up by a soft tapping on my bedroom window. I lived on the second floor, so it couldn't have been a tree branch or an animal. I peeked through the blinds and saw him standing in the courtyard, looking up at my window. Panic surged through me, and I called the police. When the officers arrived, they searched the area but found nothing. They took my statement and assured me they would keep an eye out, but I could tell they didn't take it seriously. To them, it was just another case of a young woman overreacting. I decided to install security cameras around my apartment. It gave me some peace of mind, but it didn't stop him. One morning, I found a note slipped under my door. It was a simple piece of paper with a message scrawled in messy handwriting, "I see you." I couldn't take it anymore. I went to the police again, but without any concrete evidence, they couldn't do much. I felt trapped, constantly looking over my shoulder, unable to relax in my own home. The fear was consuming me. One night, I was sitting on my couch, trying to distract myself with a movie, when I heard a noise from my bedroom. It was a soft creak, like someone was inside. I grabbed a kitchen knife and slowly made my way to the door. My hands were shaking as I pushed it open, revealing an empty room. I breathed a sigh of relief, thinking it was just my imagination. But then, I saw him in the reflection of my dresser mirror. He was standing right behind me. I spun around, but the room was empty. I was losing my mind. The final straw came a week later. I came home to find my front door slightly ajar. I knew I had locked it before leaving. I stepped inside cautiously, every muscle tensed. My apartment looked untouched, but there was a new note on the coffee table: "You can't hide from me." I packed a bag and left that night. I moved in with a friend across town and stayed with her until I could find a new place. I changed my number, deleted my social media accounts, and tried to start over. It's been 3 months now, and I haven't seen him since, but the fear never really goes away. Every time I see a man with a similar build, or catch a glimpse of someone watching me for too long, my heart races and the terror floods back. I don't know where he is or if he's still watching me, but I know one thing for sure: I'll never feel safe again.
My name is Sarah Whitman, and this is the story of the most terrifying night of my life. It happened in the heart of the city, in the safety of my own apartment. At least, that's what I believed. I had just returned home from a late shift at the hospital. The city was alive with its usual hustle and bustle, the sounds of traffic and distant sirens providing a familiar backdrop. As I locked the door behind me, I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me. I dropped my bag on the floor and headed straight to the kitchen to fix myself a cup of tea. The apartment was quiet, and the only light came from the soft glow of the streetlights filtering through the curtains. I settled on the couch, the warmth of the tea soothing my tired muscles. As I sipped, I noticed something odd. The balcony door, which I always kept locked, was slightly ajar. A chill ran down my spine. I set my cup down and cautiously approached the door. The city sounds were louder now, mixing with the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. I reached out to close the door when a shadow moved in the corner of my eye. Before I could react, a strong hand clamped over my mouth, and I was pulled back into the apartment. My heart raced as I struggled against my assailant, but he was too strong. He pushed me to the floor, binding my hands and feet with a rough rope. My mind was a whirlwind of fear and confusion. How did he get in? What did he want? The man, his face hidden under a hood, leaned close and whispered, "Don't make a sound, and you won't get hurt." His voice was cold and emotionless. Tears welled up in my eyes as I nodded, too terrified to do anything else. He dragged me to my bedroom and threw me onto the bed. I could feel the panic rising, my breaths coming in short gasps. He rummaged through my drawers, searching for something. Jewelry. Money. I didn't know, and I didn't care. All I wanted was to survive the night. Minutes felt like hours as he tore through my belongings. Finally, he seemed to find what he was looking for, a small, velvet box containing my grandmother's necklace. He pocketed it and turned to leave, but not before issuing one last warning. "If you call the police, I'll be back." As the door clicked shut behind him, I was left alone in the dark, bound and terrified. I struggled against the ropes, desperate to free myself. Eventually, I managed to loosen them enough to slip my hands out. With trembling fingers, I dialed 911. The police arrived within minutes, but the intruder was long gone. They searched the apartment, took my statement, and assured me they would do everything they could to catch him. But the damage was done. My sanctuary had been violated, and I knew I would never feel safe in my own home again. That night changed me forever. It made me realize how fragile our sense of security truly is. And though they never caught him, I hold onto the hope that one day, justice will be served. Until then, I live with the memories of that night, the night the unexpected visitor shattered my world.
My name is Sarah Hortons, and this is the story of the Canada Day I will never forget. Every year, my family and I went to our cabin in the woods to celebrate Canada Day. The cabin was surrounded by tall trees and a peaceful lake. This year started like any other, but it quickly turned strange. We arrived in the afternoon, the sun casting long shadows through the trees. While my parents unpacked the car, I decided to take a walk down to the lake. The air smelled like pine trees, and the lake was calm. Usually, there were other people around, but today, it was quiet. As I sat by the water, I saw an old man standing at the edge of the forest. He was dressed in old, tattered clothes and had a long, white beard. His eyes were piercing and seemed to glow slightly in the dim light. He stared at me, making me feel uneasy. I waved at him, trying to be polite, but he didn't wave back. He just stood there, watching. Feeling uncomfortable, I went back to the cabin. I told my parents about the old man, but they said he was probably just a local. Even though they weren't worried, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. We spent the rest of the afternoon setting up for our Canada Day celebration. We put up decorations, prepared food, and set up a small bonfire by the lake. As the sun set, the sky was painted with beautiful shades of orange and pink. The air was filled with the sounds of crickets and the distant laughter of children from neighboring cabins. Night fell, and the sky lit up with fireworks. Normally, they made me happy, but this time, I felt uneasy. I kept looking around, expecting to see the old man again, but he was nowhere to be seen. My parents noticed I was distracted and tried to cheer me up, but the feeling of being watched lingered. In the middle of the night, I woke up to a strange sound. It was a low, guttural whispering coming from outside my window. My curiosity got the better of me, and I crept to the window, peering out into the darkness. There he was, the old man, standing at the edge of the forest, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. My breath caught in my throat as I watched him raise a hand and beckon me to come outside. Terrified, I stumbled back, knocking over a lamp and waking my parents. They rushed in, and I babbled about the men outside. My father grabbed a flashlight and stormed out, but the old man was nowhere to be found. The next morning, we decided to cut our trip short. As we packed up, I noticed something carved into the tree near our cabin. It was a symbol, unfamiliar and ominous. The old man's face flashed in my mind, and I shivered. We never went back to that cabin after that Canada Day. The old man, the whispers, the symbol, they haunted my dreams for years. Even now, I can't help but wonder what he wanted, and why he chose me. But one thing is certain, Canada Day will never be the same for me. It will always be the day I encountered the shadows in the woods.
My name is Jay Tam, and I've been a sewer cleaner in this city for over 20 years. People always ask me why I chose such a filthy job, and my answer is simple: someone has to do it. Besides, it's not all bad. I've always found a strange peace in the quiet, shadowy depths beneath the city streets. But nothing could have prepared me for what I encountered last Tuesday. It started like any other day. I got the call around noon about a blockage in one of the older sections of the sewer system. I grabbed my gear and headed down into the labyrinthine tunnels, the familiar scent of damp concrete and rot hitting me as soon as I descended the access ladder. I followed the path marked on my map, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. As I trudged through the knee-deep sludge, the sound of my own footsteps echoed ominously off the walls. I reached the blockage point, a massive pile of refuse that looked like it had been building up for years. Sighing, I set to work. As I cleared away the debris, I noticed something strange. A small, ornate box lay nestled among the trash. Intrigued, I picked it up and wiped away the grime. It was an old wooden box, intricately carved with symbols I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I opened it. Inside was a single, yellowed piece of parchment. The writing was in a language I couldn't decipher, but the drawings were clear enough. They depicted scenes of sacrifice and torment, figures writhing in agony beneath an ancient, monstrous being. I felt a chill run down my spine. Suddenly, the temperature in the tunnel dropped. I could see my breath misting in the air. The flashlight flickered and then went out, plunging me into complete darkness. Panic set in, and I fumbled for the spare flashlight in my bag. When I finally got it on, the beam revealed something that made my blood run cold. Standing just a few feet away was a figure, cloaked in shadows. Its eyes glowed a sickly yellow, and a malevolent grin spread across its face. I stumbled back, dropping the box and the parchment. The figure stepped forward, and I could see its true form, a grotesque, twisted version of a human, its skin slick and glistening like that of a serpent. It spoke, its voice a guttural rasp that echoed through the tunnel. "You have disturbed my slumber," it hissed. "Now you must pay the price." I turned and ran, heart pounding, the creature's laughter ringing in my ears. I navigated the maze of tunnels, every corner turning into a new nightmare. The walls seemed to close in, and the air grew thick and suffocating. I could hear the creature behind me, its footsteps a sinister whisper in the dark. Finally, I reached the ladder and scrambled up, nearly falling in my haste. I slammed the manhole cover shut behind me, breathing hard. I was safe, for now. But as I stood there, under the cold light of the city street, I knew that my life would never be the same. That creature was still down there, waiting. And I had the dreadful feeling that it wouldn't be long before it found a way to the surface. I quit my job the next day, but the nightmares haven't stopped. Every time I close my eyes, I see that twisted grin, hear that horrible laughter. And somewhere, deep beneath the city, I know it's still waiting for me. I'm Jay Tam, and I'll never go down into the sewers again. But I fear that it's already too late.
My name is Dr. Elias Storm, an oceanographer with an insatiable curiosity for the mysteries that lie beneath the ocean's surface. My latest expedition took me to the middle of the Pacific Ocean, where strange occurrences had been reported. Fishermen spoke of monstrous shapes lurking beneath the waves, and satellite images hinted at something massive moving deep underwater. On a crisp, clear morning, I boarded a helicopter with my team to investigate. The pilot, a seasoned adventurer named Jack, flew us out over the open ocean. As we reached the coordinates, a sense of unease settled over me. The sea below was unnaturally calm, its surface like polished obsidian, reflecting the pale blue sky. We hovered over the location, and I leaned out of the open door with binoculars. My heart pounded with a mix of excitement and dread. That's when I saw it, a shadow, darker than the deepest abyss, stretching across the ocean floor. It was immense, its shape indistinct but undeniably colossal. "Jack, circle around," I called out, my voice barely audible over the whirring blades. "There's something down there." Jack nodded, and the helicopter tilted, giving us a better view. As we circled, the shadow seemed to shift and writhe, as if alive. My mind raced through possibilities. Was it a school of fish? A submarine? But nothing could explain the sheer size and the way it moved. Suddenly, the shadow began to rise. I watched in horror as it grew closer to the surface, the water churning around it. The helicopter shuddered as if caught in an unseen grip. Jack struggled with the controls, his knuckles white as he fought to keep us steady. "Hold on, Elias!" he shouted, but his voice was lost in the cacophony of alarms and roaring wind. The shadow broke the surface, revealing an ancient, monstrous form. It was the Leviathan, a creature of legend, its scales glistening like oil slicks in the sun. Massive tentacles writhed and reached towards us, each one the size of a skyscraper. I was paralyzed with fear, unable to tear my eyes away from the horror below. The helicopter bucked wildly, and I was thrown against the door, clinging to the strap for dear life. Jack's voice came through the headset, filled with terror. "Elias, we're going down!" The Leviathan's shadow enveloped us, plunging the world into darkness. The last thing I saw before everything went black was one of its enormous eyes, a window into an ancient, malevolent intelligence. When I awoke, I was floating in the wreckage of the helicopter, the ocean eerily calm once more. Jack was gone, and I was alone, adrift in a vast, indifferent sea. The memory of the Leviathan haunted me, its shadow seared into my mind. I drifted for days before a passing ship rescued me. They found me delirious, rambling about the monster in the deep. No one believed my story, dismissing it as the ravings of a man driven mad by the sea. But I know what I saw. The Leviathan is real, and its shadow still lurks beneath the waves, waiting. As I sit here, safe on dry land, I can still feel its gaze upon me, a reminder of the horrors that dwell in the depths. And I know that one day, it will rise again.